Welcome to Dylan Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Sessler. My co-host is Kyle Zahn.
How you guys doing?
We're here to help change the way the world looks at mental health, self-development, and overcoming adversity. Thanks for joining us for episode 4, where we have an incredible guest lined up. So our guest today is a TikToker with over 128,000 followers, focuses on mental health and developing new ways to connect people with resources for mental health. I've talked to this man for like 10, 15 minutes. He's a good man through and through. Like, I mean, it's too easy to see. I'm super excited to give this guy to you. Joined the military for 2 years until he broke his leg. We're going to talk about that. He struggled with multiple failed marriages and relationships. His brother was in a coma for 3 years after a drinking and driving accident. Has been to very difficult points in his life where he's felt worthless, and many more. He's stepped outside his comfort zone and now steps on this platform of TikTok to motivate people to overcome their mental health and change the way the world sees mental health. He's breaking stigmas, right? My guest today is Tyler McClelland. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute honor.
Yeah. I mean, when did you join TikTok?
I joined TikTok in August of last year.
Fast. So fast. Isn't it crazy? I mean, like you start in August and you're already 128,000 followers.
Yeah. And the crazy part is that on December 30th, I had only 27,000 followers.
Yeah.
And I had a video talking about depression that just completely skyrocketed. And then I had a video of anxiety right after that completely just took off with it. And that just really has gotten me to where I'm at now and building that and getting the word out to people.
I think it was the video on anxiety that I saw was the one where I started following you. I was like, this guy's legit. I love him. You know?
Yeah, and it's crazy what one video or two videos can do for a lot of people out there. It takes one moment or one video in this case to change people's perspectives on things, and you hit it right on the head with those videos. Seriously.
Yeah. So Tyler, tell me why you joined TikTok. Tell me what's your goal? Where are you going with it?
You know, I kind of had a aha moment, I like to say, where, you know, I got it and kind of just wanted to watch videos, make some, you know, neat little videos and things of that nature. And, you know, had an experience with the VA. And I said, you know what? People need to know that mental health is normalized, and just started, you know, posting about, you know, motivational things daily and really just staying connected. But that was just like my aha moment was, I know I'm not the only one who has this frustration built up inside.
Right.
I know there's many more like me. Let me see if I can connect with other like-minded individuals on TikTok and try to see who I can help and connect with.
And was that VA moment, was that the broken leg, or was that something else?
That was just dealing with, you know, mental health and, you know, just really bad anxiety and, you know, depression, and just trying to get, you know, seen and get helped. And, you know, always told, you know, well, you know, we can't see you for 3 months, but if you feel like it, you know, call this number and press 1. And everyone knows the infamous suicide hotline number for veterans.
Right.
And it's like, and that was just like, you know, why are we going to wait till that point? Like
Right.
there's a moment now. Like, why can't you just take 10 minutes out of your day to talk to me and things of that nature rather, I mean, you clearly had time to answer my phone call. And that was just kind of like my moment of, there needs to be something different.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Like the VA, and I'm lucky. I've had one experience with the VA. Wasn't fun, wasn't pleasant. They didn't tell me the thing that I wanted to hear, and they didn't help me. But it wasn't a major issue, you know, something I got fixed down the road. But it just, I mean, the horror stories are crazy. I mean, how many times are veterans going to go to the VA and get bad healthcare before something's fixed?
in my experience, it takes a lot of persistence. So my leg that I had broken in the military, I had a couple surgeries to get it fixed. And for years after I'd gotten out, I'm very active still. I work out, I do CrossFit, I do action sports. And once a year though, my leg would get real swollen, a lot of fluid on it. And I'd go to the VA and be like, I can barely walk, something's wrong. They take x-rays, say, oh, you're fine, stop working out. And after about 3 years of that, I finally said, I'm done listening to y'all say that, send me somewhere else. And I went and saw an orthopedic specialist in my hometown, and he looked at the x-rays from the VA and goes, huh, and took his thumb and pushed it right on my leg. And I about jumped out of that chair. And he goes, we'll get x-rays to confirm, but this screw and that screw are both in bones that they shouldn't be in, and touching the peritoneum on them. And he goes, we're going to need to get those screws out. And it was like, y'all didn't see that, but this guy saw it within 3 seconds of me sitting in his chair and looking at x-rays done that by y'all that y'all sent to him. And it just, I know worse has happened to other people, but it's like that could have lost my limb down the road if if it would have stayed in my ankle or touching and tearing up stuff. And so
if that would have happened on the civilian market, that's medical malpractice in
exactly
in more ways than one. But where's the accountability? It's crazy.
And there is no accountability.
Because I've had 3 ACL surgeries. One of them was done by the VA, and they didn't do what they were supposed to. I was supposed to have a full reconstruction, and before I went into the surgery, the surgeon's sitting there and he's telling me like I should do a patellar tendon and take the patellar and put it into my ACL and take it from my own body. And I'm like, no, last year I had a cadaver ACL and I recovered from that very well. I'm very strong. It feels like new. I want the same thing. He's like, well, that's way more expensive. I just want you to know that. I'm like, I know that. That's what I want that. And so during the surgery, apparently they went in, looked at it and said it was only partially torn. So therefore they weren't going to replace it, and never actually did the surgery. Well, a year later, I go to, I'm running outside and not running. I was doing some air assault mission, air assault training mission, and my knee just gave out, right? Dislocated right on the spot. I'm running around the woods and I'm just like, I fall over, right? Lo and behold, my orthopedic surgeon that I went to that time was like, this thing has been torn for a long time. It was not torn, a month ago when you scheduled this appointment. This was torn for a very long time, fully torn, not partially torn, fully torn. He's like, you can tell by this. And he shows me on the MRIs. And I'm like, awesome. So I don't know, there's no proof that I can take that to the VA and say, you did this wrong. But, where's the accountability? It's like, I want this surgery done. I don't care if it costs you an extra $20,000. You're supposed to take care of me, and again, like, just like you said, it's not the worst thing that could happen, but it's not convenient. It's not nice. It's not appreciated, and it's tough to want to take advantage of, and not even, maybe take advantage isn't the right word, but it's hard to want to take the support that the veteran status you have earned and go to the VA and get nothing, to get, you come out worse than you came in sometimes, and it's like, why should that be happening?
Yeah. I wait till I'm on deathly sick and can't do anything. And then I'm like, I need to go to the ER, and I call and I'm like, I make sure it's after hours, and I make sure they have in the system for an approval. So if they try to say, oh, we didn't approve that, I can be like, no, I already have a reference number, because again, I'd rather sit at the emergency room for 5.5, 6 hours than to go sit in a VA where you have to show up 15 minutes early to your appointment just to get seen 30 minutes after your appointment time.
Right. That's nuts. It's just so nuts. Well, I don't mean to get off topic, but I want to kind of go back to mental health, because obviously the military and your leg probably weren't the first time that you had to deal with mental health and face mental health. So where did that start for you? Where did your mental health battle, your struggle, whatever you want, where did that begin for you?
Looking back, a lot of it began in 2001. Everyone was focused on 9/11, but for me, my brother was in a car accident, and it completely changed my world. That was my hero, someone that I looked up to. We were very far apart in age. We're 10 years apart, and so that really, really kind of started things to where I didn't really realize it at the time. But, being a big brother to my little sister, I kind of had to be tougher than, which she kind of understood. She understood, but it was more of the fact that I had to try to be strong for her. So, show her what's strong and not look weak. And I think that's what kind of started me masking, pain and, things like that, and kind of burying them deep down until they would overflow.
Kyle, I mean,
Yeah, this is literally the spitting image of what I've had to go through.
yeah.
So I was telling you prior to us starting the recording that my brother died in 2012. He was 13 months younger than me, and my younger brother was 10 years younger than that. So me having to display the same image to my younger brother, who was not really understanding of the situation, and I'm over here eating all of that.
Yeah. You guys got a lot in common.
Yeah. This is crazy. I feel for you, man. Seriously. I went through it. It's not easy.
Yeah. It's tough. My brother, I'll never forget this moment. Is, my brother, he's survived, of course. It was in a coma and then a partial coma. And basically everyone knows Christopher Reeves. Well, a lot of older people know Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
When he fell off the horse and, his spinal cord twisted, that's the injury that my brother has had. And so he's there, but he's not there. He's a vegetable, but he's still coherent. He can, can't talk, can't communicate, but that was really tough, on my family. I'll never forget my mom in the kitchen crying one day, and I don't know what we were talking and arguing, and she had said something about, I wish he would have just died. It would have been easier on us. And I remember being so angry at that comment. And then at the same time too, sitting there realizing like, well, I do too. Cause it was at the time, being in high school and, growing up in junior high and high school and trying to be the cool kid, and fit in. You don't want your brother who's in a wheelchair and, just kind of there, you're like, okay, I didn't see my brother for the longest time because it hurt me too bad. I would cry too much afterwards. Yeah. And it took me many years to finally be able to sit down with him and have a conversation with him. Other than that, I would drive to all the family gatherings alone, do what I had to do and leave, just so I didn't have to face that, and a lot of that's kind of helped now.
Now for I guess either of you, because you guys have such similar stories, and maybe both of you, did you guys ever feel like there was, a loss of attention due to what happened, where you were, your parents were focused on, for you, Tyler, your brother was still alive, but for you, Kyle, I mean, did they, were they stuck in the grieving process and not giving either of you attention? What did that look like for you?
So what I experienced from the whole entire situation was they made the choice at the hospital to pull the plug on him because his injuries were far too severe, and there was a 30% chance he would even make it out of the hospital a couple days later anyways. From that point on, I feel like there was a drastic change in the way they handled daily life, and it kind of consumed them so much that 3 years later they did end up divorcing, because they just couldn't get over the fact that their
Yeah.
child was gone before they were.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar. I mean, I call it the middle child syndrome. I was already the middle child, and my brother at the time already had a baby. I was an uncle at I was an uncle at 11.
Yeah.
And my sister was, especially in high school, my sister has 2 state championships for softball, has many records, went on to win a national championship in softball in college. And, my brother got this attention, and then my niece, and here I am, the middle child, like, hello. And like, here I am, so, but I coped with it with gambling and, doing stuff I probably shouldn't have done, driving my parents crazy, and getting that attention in the wrong ways,
Sure.
per se, if we're being honest about it. And, it was kind of that moment when my grandfather passed of cancer. He was a really good man. And he told my mom, he said, promise me one thing, no matter what you do, no matter what that kid does, you better make sure he gets through life, because he is going to have potential to do something one day. And once that kind of was said, that's when I joined the military. And, kind of, shortly after that, and kind of just been trucking along since then, trying to figure out where my niche is to kind of really get in there with it and make a difference and influence, people.
Well,
Sure.
let me say it for him, right? For your grandfather. I told you so. Because look at this, right? Like, you're 128,000 people don't follow you for no reason, and it's not hard to see that potential when you sit down and talk to you. I mean, I don't know if you see yourself as much as me and Kyle are seeing you right now, but it's super easy to see how good-hearted you are.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's not like, that's not me bullshitting. Like, I recognize that, right? It's super easy to see that. And you're a good dude. And wherever you go in life, I hope people pay attention, and I hope people like really give you the time that you deserve, because you're just a good dude. I love it. And this this makes me excited, because this is why I started this podcast. This is why I started this journey, because I wanted to connect with good people, bring them to a point where I can show, like, put you in front of them and see, like, I'm not the only one, right? Kyle's not the only one. Tyler is not the only one. Like, there are good people that are here to help, and you can't use the excuse that no one wants to help you and no one cares about you anymore, because it's bullshit. Like, this podcast is here for a reason. Tyler's here for a reason. Kyle's here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. Pay attention, right? And like, you and me are on the same journey. Like, we're here to change the way people see mental health, and this bullshit stigma that you're crazy or you're nuts or anything like that. It's not, right? Like, mental health is the result of problems that started early on, at some point, with the inevitability of life. And when people like you and me and Kyle step up and start talking about it, guess what? We help people, and why can't we normalize that? Why can't we like, we're 3 dudes. Like, this is crazy. Like, this never would have happened 15, 20 years ago. 3 dudes talking about emotional stuff, right? Like, who does that? Well, we do it now, and let's start normalizing it. That's just how I feel. That was my 2 cents.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. The world today doesn't have a full grasp of what mental health really is, and it's because we weren't allowed to feel about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. And like you said, you, me, and then Tyler, we're here to say that it's okay to talk about what you're going through. It's as simple as that. We got to get past, like you said, get past that stigma. We got to get to the point where we can normalize mental health and the way we feel.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just like, hell, even 10, 15 years ago, you know, if someone committed suicide, it was the big deal. And it was just, oh my goodness. And now it's like, if someone does it, it's so normalized that it's like, oh, in and out, story's done, feel bad, talk about it. 3 days later, everything's back to normal. No one really thinks 2 cents of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, why do we normalize suicide and death, but we can't normalize the things that led up to
Right.
that suicide? And that's, you know, I always say that, you know, we normalize suicide. Suicide's so normal now. You don't even bat an eye at it. But yet anxiety and depression comes up and people are like, oh my God, you have anxiety, you have depression. And if they don't understand it, they cannot connect and get what you're going through.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I think it's more so that the unknown, because it's not talked about. It's not, people think that going and sitting down with a psychologist is terrible. You know, they think that if you have to go sit with a counselor, and that's for also even couples in general, there's a stigma of being, you know, of going to, I know couples that go to couple counseling, not because they need help, but because they're able to talk about emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And people with anxiety and depression, I go see my psychologist all the time. I see her, you know, every 2 to 3 months, you know, and I sit down and we just talk. We just, you know, how's everything going? And, you know, how's this going? You know,
Yep.
And but other people see that as, oh, well, you know, I don't know why, you know, because it's not normalized, if that makes sense. Kind of rambling a little bit because I'm kind of,
no, it's good.
Trying to figure out the exact words with it. But
you telling people right now that you go see a psychologist 10, 15 years ago, people would judge you, right? Even now, people would judge you, right? I don't. Kyle doesn't. Like,
no.
We're sitting here like, hell yeah. I mean, that's great because you're able to not just compartmentalize and remain silent, because the things that keep us silent are the things that crush us, right? And we try carrying these things that aren't ours to carry. You have the ability to sit there and talk to someone that's willing to listen to you and create space for you to put this stuff out there and leave it there. And that's healthy, right? Why, you know, we have this, you know, I like to use Instagram as a big example, right? Like Instagram became the health and fitness social media platform, right? But how has it changed mental health? The one thing that probably would change the world if we actually like created a movement about it, you know? But rather than having a health and fitness platform, we have this idealism, and you have these Instagram fitness models that blew up over 2013, 14, and 15. And now they have millions of followers, but psychiatrists and psychologists that jumped on the platform can't get anything. And it's like, where's the normalization of that? That's healthy.
And you see it on TikTok too. I mean,
yep.
You make a video, and there's days that I've met, and I'm sure you can contest this. You make a video and you're like, this is the one, like
yeah.
this is the $1 million, like this is it, you know?
Yep.
Like this is it. And then you post it and you go look 3 hours later and it's like 500 views.
Yep. And
then you go scroll the For You page and here's, you know, somebody who has more trust in a bikini than I do in relationships, and with 4 million likes on it. And it's like, and you go click their profile and they're 17 years old with 2.7 million followers. And it's like, you realize they're not following you because they like you. They're following you because they want to see that trust issue fail. Like, they're looking for their next divorce here. Like, let's be honest here. I mean,
oh man, that's good.
It's sad, but it's so true.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Think about it. Go look up all the trending hashtags.
Yep.
And I guarantee you within the first 10, 50% of the ones of the most liked for that trending hashtag will involve either one, a girl that has, like I said, has more trust than most people have in relationships, or two, a cute baby.
Yeah.
Other than that,
yeah,
if you're not a dude with a 12-pack washboard abs and
Yeah.
look like you're on the cover of OG magazine, you might as well hope and pray you're funny, because that's about the only way you're going to make it on the app.
right. I mean, there's large mental health kind of influencers like MD Motivator and, well, Eric B. Zink, but that's a difficult subject, especially. I don't know if you know much about Eric B. Zink, but we don't need to talk about that. There's some allegations out there that could be true, could not be true. You can look it up. But there's nobody that's more than like 2 million, 3 million, maybe. I think there's a psychiatrist or psychologist or something like that that has about 2 or 3 million, but that's it. Like there's 8 million people, and that's CDC, right, that have PTSD. 8 million that are reported diagnosed PTSD, right? Which in my mind says there's probably more like 30 million, because it's always a quarter or a third. So probably more like 30 to 40 million people that have gone through some sort of trauma that would lead to PTSD. Where are these people, on these platforms? Like, how are they not seeing this? And that's a question for the algorithm, obviously, but it makes me curious as to how some of these bigger influencers with really great content, like I think MD Motivator has incredible content. You have incredible content. Why are more people not seeing it right now?
Yeah. And, and I think, I gave up on trying to figure out the algorithm, like I gave up on getting married again. Like there's some things you just can't figure out. And
Right.
And that's one of them, because I'll sit there and still have likes, I'll have 99 plus notifications in a 30-minute window.
Yep.
And I'll get on there and I'll go look at my videos and I'm like, I've only had like 1,500 views all day long, like,
yeah,
where are these coming from? But it'll be videos from 3 weeks ago that I'm like, well, when did that video get this many views? Like I had a video and only had like 100,000 views on it, or 20,000 views. And then all of a sudden I went back up there and it was 100,000. Now it's at 250,000. And I'm like, that video was posted on January like 12th. Like we're a month later. Like, why are you pushing out this?
Yeah.
And not these other ones? And like, clearly it's been shared, this video has been shared 20, 30 times. So like, it's not adding up per se. You know what I mean?
It's interesting for sure. I mean, in the beginning, I had no idea how it worked. And then throughout summer and into fall, I think I was hitting it right. I was making videos and I was putting them out at the right time. I was making them good lengths, but also keeping people's attention. And right now, apparently it's like, once you get like 50% watch time, like you've hit the magic number and that video is going to go, and it's kind of hit or miss. Like I have that in a couple of videos, but the expansion and the growth that I had in November and December certainly isn't the same as what it is now. And it obviously seems like organic growth is still there, but it's definitely, the train is slowing down on TikTok.
Yeah. And I think, I tell people this is because I know you can Google stuff out there and it'll tell you this is what time you should post this video on this day. You should post between these times and this time. And one thing that I tell people who ask me, and this is something that I've done that's helped me a lot, is consistency.
Yep.
I go live twice a day, and every morning it's a consistent time. My evening lives can vary, but my morning lives are consistent at a certain time. I post a video at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time every single morning, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go live at 10 o'clock, Central Time. And I go live for, depending on what's being talked about, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, sometimes 3. But, I've learned, that's what I tell people. I'm like, as long as you're consistent with it, then your followers that you do have that are loyal, they're going to be knowing when you're going to do your things and when they can expect that stuff.
Right.
And it's good too, because it holds you accountable. I have some very good followers that will message me if I'm not on, and message me, hey, are you good? Did I miss something this morning? Like, just wanted to check on you. And if I'm like, hey, I'm just off today, I'm running behind, they're like, okay, I just wanted to make sure, I'll, if I have a mental health day, I'm like, look, I'm just struggling this morning. Give me a second. I'm trying to get myself together,
Yep.
and and so that's another thing I think that is a lot better than algorithms, having that,
Right.
That accountability of knowing, like, okay, something's not right here. Let's check and see.
Yeah. It's you go live twice a day, every day.
Yes.
It's awesome. I don't do that. I don't have time to do that.
Yeah, my schedule's every 2 days at night, probably about 8 p.m. Central. There's some give or take in that too, and especially lately with how much the schedule's been interesting for me. So otherwise it's normally about every 2 days, 8 p.m. at night, just on there to hang out with people that I normally push out content to. Like you said, there's going to be the regulars that come, and they're always checking on you if things aren't quite matching up with the consistency portion. And it's always nice to know that they're looking out for you too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and trust me, it gets tiring twice a day.
Sure.
I coach tumbling. I am looking to make this more of a full time, just because I do have an extra income from the VA, coming in, and I live Oklahoma's cheap to live in, period, anyways,
Right.
and, so I'm trying to grow that to where I can give more time back to people that need it and things to that nature, and be able to travel more and meet more people and meet these, people that have made a difference in my life, or people who I've made a difference in their life, and I think the biggest thing with it is that the reason why I break it up in two is my morning lives are, if someone is feeling whatever I posted that morning, that message that I posted, if they're dealing with an issue, they hop into my lives and they say, hey, can I get some advice from you? This is what I'm asking. Because I'm very honest. I mean, you've been in my lives before, Dylan. And when people ask questions, I don't sugarcoat it. If someone says, oh, my boyfriend cheated on me, I'm like, leave his dumb ass. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's so blunt, but that's how I am with stuff. And, and I've talked to many people about, being in toxic relations, abusive relationships, what to do, how to handle it. And I'm just super blunt and honest with them. And I give them that time in the mornings to kind of really help them with an aha moment. And then in my nighttime lives, I call it Tyler After Dark. If someone hops on there and has a question or needs advice, I'll hit it and I'll tell them what they, I'll give them advice. But for the most part, my music's completely different. I'm playing more of top 40, today's hits music, and I'm sitting there dancing, singing, joking around, making all kinds of innuendos, just kind of messing with people, you know what I mean? And we're all sitting there joking with each other. Just because I believe at nighttime, if you go to bed thinking sad and depressing things and anxious thoughts, you're going to wake up with that boiled over, because you're going to go to bed and you're going to hold all that energy in. And if I can make you smile and laugh in my nighttime lives, you're going to go to bed for that split second, realizing like, oh, I'm tired, I need to go to bed. But you just laugh so much that you can go to bed in peace and forget about the worries from the day.
And that's my thought process on my every other night lives. I want people to at least go to bed with the thought in their head that I can smile, I can laugh, I still have that peace in me, and I want more of that. And for me, that's also a therapeutic, because I know I can provide that to people, and they provide it back through their comments and stuff like that. So I'll have the more upbeat music, some jams from like back when I was younger too, just kind of reminiscing through the past with music, and it's awesome. And that's what I try to purvey with my lives. At least I leave the content up for more of the deep subjects, but the lives are more for like, hey, just come hang out, let's have a good time. So I feel that, and I appreciate that.
Man, I feel different here. My lives are My lives are intense, almost always intense. Like Kyle, you've been there for quite a few of my lives.
Yep.
And they are, I mean, I've talked people down from suicide at like, I can't count, right? Like so many times. I give people advice constantly, and it's deep stuff. Like we get into the thick of stuff on my lives. And that's probably why I don't go live every day, is because I know I can't consistently manage that, doing that it's hard to do that without the conversation, right? I love the life coaching aspect for me, where I can sit with someone and have a conversation with them, because that energizes me to bring more to the table, and it becomes more dynamic because I can understand context, rather than waiting on a screen to say context, and waiting like that. To me, I truly, the most value I offer is in my live sessions, but it's not easy. I mean, that, Tyler, that, Kyle. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're sitting there waiting for context on a deeply, disturbing situation. And you're like, how am I going to respond to this? And I really don't know that much. The best I can give is the best I can give. But if you don't give me the context to work with it, I don't really know if I can help you,
Yeah. And that's the number one question I ask people whenever they say, this is something that's going on. And I'm like, ooh, okay, that's, you're going to have to give me some more context here.
Right.
Like you can't just, give me this big umbrella and hope that I can find, the rain inside of it. Like you're going to have to really dig down and and I tell them, like, if you're not comfortable with that, I understand, but I can't be able to give you what you need unless I know more about it. If there are kids involved, or there, is this long-term marriage, dating, is it, what, like, you got to break it down, because like you said, and lives do get hard. They're so stressful, and people don't realize that. Like, people in my lives look at me and be like, Tyler, are you okay today? And I'm just like, and I'm thinking in my head, like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I'm really too good, but like, you got to give me something to work with here, Like,
I feel that, though. There's some times in my lives where people come in and they're struggling with something, but they don't give me anything to work off of. So I'm sitting here for like 10, 15 seconds waiting for something to happen. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
And the delay, and you have to learn. And that's something that I try to learn, but I have ADD. So literally I'll like respond back to somebody and then zone out for a split second. And then I'll reply with what they said. And then I'm like, and then like 2 seconds later they respond it, and I'm like trying to talk about it, but then they're responding it again. And I'm like, crap.
I've gotten in the habit of like telling people, like, if you post a question, I'm probably not going to see it. I zone out. I go into my discussion, and then I look back at the screen and answer another question. So like the contextual ones are hard to work with. Just throw something in the chat and I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Like I just prepare people. I'm like, I'm not going to scroll up. There's too many questions, because it's so dense. Like my lives are so dense. It's crazy.
I've been in them where you've asked me a question and I'm like trying, and I like type it out, and I like 5 minutes later, I don't hear nothing. And I'm like, I know because I've been there. Like, unless what it's like to have a live with 50 to 100 people in it that are all commenting, because sometimes even stuff that you see, I'm not seeing on my screen, and it's like, and people get so frustrated, like, oh, you're ignoring me. And it's like, I'm not ignoring you. Like, I genuinely, like, either I can't keep up with it, TikTok is screening it, or I'm just not seeing it, like, I apologize. And that's why I kind of I think starting in March, I'm going to change my morning lives to more of, I'm going to have topics wrote out for each day.
It's good.
And I'm going to allow almost kind of like, I guess you could say, like a podcast setup or something to that nature, where I'm going to talk about these issues that I get asked a lot, and kind of give my opinions, my advice on them, and have my moderators tell people, this is the topic of discussion today.
Yeah. And
the beautiful part is now TikTok, I don't know if y'all knew this, but now they're recording all your lives and actually save it for 90 days.
Yep.
So that kind of helps me as well to grow onto, like we were discussing earlier, different platforms. That helps me to where I can go and start YouTube and take that video and save it. Yep. And post it to YouTube and say, well, if you missed it, hop on over to, click on my YouTube and you can find that topic there. That way, if someone did miss that day, then they can go, or if they didn't get to hear all of it, they can go and rewatch it or listen to it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, do a Q&A where if someone has questions, they can be like, hey, this is, what would you do in this situation, and things to that nature.
Right. And that's kind of where I'm at, is I'm trying to focus more on YouTube now and kind of dive into new platforms. Like I've built up a decent Instagram following, not crazy like TikTok, but working on YouTube and trying to diversify my platforms to reach different people, more people. And yeah, it's nice. I saw that like I did a live like 2 days ago or yesterday. I don't even know. But I was like, yeah, I was recording. I'm like, oh, interesting. That's new. I can't wait for them to actually do dual lives so we can, like, you and me can come on and answer questions. Like I can't wait for that.
Yeah, they actually have it in the UK. The UK can do
Australia.
dual live. In Australia, yeah, like all over there. But here we are in America, like, hey.
Yep. Hard times.
Did you forget about us?
We bought TikTok.
That's banned in the US. Remember, like, you can't do that. You can't have fun together.
Right.
Well, Kyle, you got any questions for him?
Honestly, I just had one question. You want to talk us through the thoughts and like the exact moment when your injury happened? Describe it to us.
Well, for my leg.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think it was a mixture of things. It was my fibula. Sorry, I speak in like medical and like military terms, but it was my fibula. It was probably broken, on accountable of things, just from, falling, working out in the motor pool, to playing soccer that weekend, to running 5 miles on the hill at Fort Riley, and just kind of took my boot off and it was just, swelled up. And the surgery, I went from cast to boot, cast to boot, cast to boot, because y'all know how the Army is. They like to do everything they can to not just fix the issue at hand right up front.
Exactly.
Least cost. They do least cost rather than most efficient.
Yeah.
And finally they're like, oh yeah, well, it's not healing. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Thank you for thank you for, like, I'm aware of this. Like, here I am with the bone stimulator that y'all spent all this money on, had it shipped to me, and all it does is turn my leg beet red. Like, congratulations. Like, I like, it took me going to the ombudsman and be like, I have a say in my medical, and I'm done sitting around, because I was infantry, and I was like, I'm done sitting around. All my buddies are out doing all this cool shit, and here I am looking like a freaking, a profile pirate. I'm just sitting there just soaking it in, and it's like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what, and that's whenever I'd already gone through one divorce, and then that happened, and it was all kinds of like, this is not what I need. This is not good for my mental health right now. Like, all this is doing is making my mental health worse too. Like, just do the surgery. Like, I would rather have screws and plates put all in my leg and be done and physical therapy and back into training than to keep sitting here doing this.
Yeah.
Well, to say the least, I got woke up by the surgeon, and all he said was, sorry, I fucked up. Those were the exact words. I don't know if I can say it on here, but I kind of already did. But those were his.
For it. Fuck it.
We are good with it. Let's get it.
Those were his exact words. Were, sorry, I fucked up. And I will never forget those words. And I looked up, his phone rang, and he walked right out. And I looked down thinking, like, did he remove my leg? And my leg was still there. Right. And he, even after he had marked on my leg where to do the incision, and we did, they'll do the whole talk, like, we're going to go through here and use a marker and stuff like that. He second guessed the surgery and did it up top. Well, instead of just making the incision all the way down and just doing what needs to be fixed, he decided just to wake me up and tell me that he screwed up. Well, he did another surgery 48 hours later, and it was the right one this time, thank God. but because of the surgeries and them not giving me antibiotics, I ended up getting cellulitis.
Oh,
So by the time I got all that fixed and drained and all that good jazz, you know, it wasn't even by choice. It was one of those moments where the brigade surgeon said, you know, I mean, y'all know how it is in the military with injuries and things like that. And he was like, "Oh, you're just a shitbag. What do you, I mean, what are your plans? You going to ever get off that profile?" And I'm like, this isn't my fault. Like, I didn't,
right.
I wish I was back already. Like, if y'all would have had the surgery already, you know, buddy, I would have already been back and done therapy, back ready to go, you know. And basically I sat down with the surgeon on my leg and I told him, I said, well, you need to tell me what's happening, because it's getting close to that 1 year and I need to know what's going on. I was like, this has been the worst experience ever medically. Cause like you said, you know, we've talked about this, where there's nothing you can do about it. There's no malpractice.
Right.
You know, it's basically any other place, I would have been rich. I would have been a millionaire driving a brand new Lamborghini right now, living wealthy, you know?
Yep.
But because it was military, there's nothing. I told him, I was like, what do you want? He's like, well, honestly, you're not done with therapy yet. And I was like, well, then you need to tell them that you're going to extend it again, because I'm done. And here I am, you know, 6 years later. And, you know,
That's
so,
crazy.
and that really messed me up mentally too. That actually was pretty bad on my mental health, because I didn't join the military just to join the military and get out and be like, hey,
right,
here I am. Like, I joined to serve. You know, my grandfather was a Vietnam, you know, veteran. You know, I joined to serve.
right.
I wanted to go deploy. I wanted to, you know, do all these things. That's why I chose infantry. I wanted to be right there on the front of everything, in the middle of it. And, you know, all this training that I went through, you know, I went through my ex-wife got pregnant while I was, you know, in training, and, you know, completely did some shady stuff while I was in there, you know.
Yep.
And it was like, I went through all this just to go through this. And, you know, I don't talk about it a lot. You know, if people ask and they say, you know, I don't get into details with it, because for me, it took me a long time to really accept, like, you know, what happened was not my fault.
Yeah.
That, you know, I didn't have control over that. And that's something that took me many years to really just soak in and be like, okay, you know, it is okay what I went through, you know?
Yeah. Loss of mobility is brutal. You know, like when I came home from Afghanistan in 2013, tore my ACL 3 days later while I was on leave, tore my ACL. I'm like, I don't know what this means. And luckily my friend Chris had torn his ACLs like 74 times, because I don't even know if he was born with them. But he looks at me, he's like, that popped, it's torn. He's like, I already know. Like, you may as well go to the emergency room, get the x-rays and schedule an MRI, because that's what you're going to need. And he's like, you got to have reconstruction on it. Like, and I'm just mortified, right? Because I had come home from my deployment thinking, like, I'm going special forces. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of infantry. It's not enough for me. Like, I want to do more. I spent most of my deployment in Afghanistan running security missions, like standing outside a compound waiting for people to come out and take them back to base. Like, I was babysitting. I was tired of it. And I got home, tore my ACL, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Like, how do I deal with this? Like, I can't walk, you know, and having that feel like it's not your fault. Like, someone else did it to me. But at the same time, you're like sitting there and you're like, what if this is the end? And for you, like, we had different paths. Like, it was the end for you. I'm still in, right? I had to go through 3 ACL reconstructions in 3 years. And I know the feeling of being a profile pirate. I'm sitting there like, I'm not trying to tear my ACL. It just happens, right? Like, I tore my left one, my first year, you know, like tore it on leave, tore doing jujitsu, a full year of recovery, right? And then tore my right one, because that's what happens when you tear your left ACL, your right one becomes weaker because you're overcompensating. Tore that one. I'm like, come on, right? And a year later, after the VA said you don't need surgery, obviously my knee gave out and I felt a pop, and I was like, well, I probably tore that one again. And so 3 years in a row, I'm sitting there on profile for a year each time. And I'm like looking at my unit like, are you guys gonna keep me for 3 years? I'm like, I'm doing everything I can, guys, to not be on profile. I'm working my ass off, right? I'm providing value in other ways than my body can provide. And it's just like, it's so hard on you because you're like, I want to be here, but then people are looking at you like, well, you're broken. Like, you shouldn't be here, because that's the infantry culture,
Mm-hmm.
and you were talking about like people just naturally treating, you're on profile, oh, you're a shitbag, you know? And that natural, you know, that's one of the things that is destructive in one, the infantry culture, but I think that's a military culture in general, but especially the infantry, is that people will look at you and judge you without even giving you a chance. And it's so destructive to the cultures of units, the mental health of the men that are going through that. Like, I was lucky, I was a stubborn dude and was just like, nope, I'm staying in. And I fought tooth and nail to stay in. But at like every step of the way, I was like, they might kick me out for this. They might, they like, that was always on my mind. And I was struggling through it every single day, and like losing that mobility and losing that potential. Like right now, like I never would have met you, Kyle, I never would have met you.
Right. Right.
Tyler, there might have been I may not have met you if that hadn't happened. Right. And
Yeah.
and all of this is just like, that's part of the problem in the military, I think, is the fact that we don't give people an opportunity to speak they speak their truth and tell their story or anything like that. It's just flat out, you're a shitbag, you're on profile, I don't want to talk to you. Right. And then, you're trying to, as a like a new guy or someone with a profile, you're just trying to get back in action. Right. Most of everybody's like you and me, Tyler. We're just trying to get back. Right. We're just trying to do the job. But it's hard, you know?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. I think it's just that stigma. It goes back to the stigma of mental health. And you know, a lot of people don't realize it, but if you think about it, you go anywhere on post, what do you see? A sharp sign and a suicide hotline sign. But is there anything that talks about anxiety,
No.
depression, PTSD, alcohol,
Right.
drugs, anger?
All the
I mean, yeah,
things
you
that
go see him
lead.
if you go to the chaplain, you see him if you go into the medical part of it, but you can go to the MWR and see a sign talking about sharp. You can see a sign with a number. You can see a sign talking about suicide.
Yep.
But you don't ever see anything. And it's because, mentally you have to, if you don't do anything else,
Yeah.
I'll leave that word in the open for everyone to use, insert here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell my guys, I talk about this on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. I talk this, Kyle was on my team. I talked about it with my team. Like, suicide isn't the problem. It's the result. It's the result of all of these things that happen in our lives. It can be anything. It can be domestic violence. It could be sexual abuse. It could be trauma. It could be violence. It could be, depression and anxiety, or bad parents, and we don't have the foresight as because realistically, like, the army is still kind of a business structure, right? But we haven't taken like the understanding of what some businesses are doing and giving mental health days, or offering like support services. Like, we don't have people. We have a chaplain, but nobody uses the chaplain.
No.
Nobody understands what the chaplain is for, or behavioral health. Like, there's a stigma behind the chaplain. There's a stigma behind behavioral health. There's a stigma behind going to your squad leader and saying, I'm struggling, because what that tells your squad leader is that you're not combat effective. And how do we break through that? Like, that has to be a cultural thing within the military of saying the mission is important, but the men are more important, because we can't field an army of people that don't know how to communicate their problems. But it's backwards, right? The army and the military in general looks at it the opposite. They look at it mission first, figure it out. And there's no discussion, right? And I think that's changing. I do, because our battalion just lost 4 soldiers to suicide in the last 15 months, right? I think, Kyle, you have the same thing.
Sure do.
Right?
Absolutely.
The state is making some pretty big moves, and I'm not going to talk about them because it's not the right time to talk about them, but there's a potential for big changes with at least the National Guard, but who knows where that could go. So it's an interesting time.
And it needs to be that way. I mean, people don't understand break down facts of it. There's 22 a day for veterans. Like, let's be real here. Like, that's almost every hour someone who is either in the military or a veteran is, doing that. I mean, suicide, the number of suicides in the country, 75% of it is men.
Right.
And, there's a lot of men that go and join the military at some point in stigma. Does someone make it through training? No. Do some of them make it for 30 years? Yes.
Right.
But they don't understand how crazy statistics are in a matter of that. They just think, oh, whatever. But like, why don't we talk about the anxiety?
Yeah.
Like those soldiers were dealing with something and they couldn't talk about it because we don't normalize it. That's kind of like what I talked with you. That's why I'm on the mission that I'm on, is because I want that to be normalized. I want them to be like, you know what, today's a bad day. I need to do this. I need to call somebody.
Yeah. I mean, like leadership, right? If you're a leader that's unwilling to sit down with a soldier and allow him to speak about anything and everything in his life, then you're not offering that soldier any value for the rest of his life, right? I look at people as leaders and I look at them in a very specific light. How do you treat the weakest link? That tells me a fucking lot about your character.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're willing to look at that weakest link and say, you're the weakest link, you're a waste of my time, look what's going to happen, right? These guys, some of these guys were not the strongest soldiers, right? And I knew some of them personally. And how did leadership treat them? That's my question, because I know some of the answers. I don't need to talk about that. It's not my place, but it's a good question. It's a very important question to have in the military is how did leadership manage them? How did leadership treat them? Because it's the result. And if you're not allowed to speak, you're not going to, right? Where's the incentive to have a conversation with people that are unwilling to actually care about what you're going through? Like, what do you expect? What do you expect when people are not allowed to speak about these things? And then we have these suicide awareness briefs that say, talk to your leadership, talk to friends, talk to family, talk to people. But how can they when they don't have the environment and the culture built around to actually have these conversations? It's a fucking problem, is what it is.
Yeah, definitely agree. 100%.
And that's what the Army is facing. That's what the military in general is facing is they've got to step out of, me and Kyle had this conversation. I don't even know if it was on a podcast or not, but the Army has leadership, its definition of leadership. It has its definition of, talking about suicide and talking about mental health, but it's the Army's, right? Or it's the militaries, it's the general staffs, whatever. But they don't bring in outside people to fill in the gaps and talk about new perspectives. So all we have is a bunch of military dudes that are looking at the same suicide awareness brief as last year and not learning a damn thing of perspective, because it's, you know, it's incestual at this point is a good word to put it. Is it's remaining in the family, and the family's pretty unhealthy. The family's pretty toxic, and it's not learning anything. You know, like that's what the Army's facing, is that it's not broadening its horizons. It's not looking for new perspectives or anything like that. It's just sitting there waiting for something to change, and it's not working.
Yep. And we did talk about this on our last podcast. And I had to go through
next podcast.
Yeah, well, the next, yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. But no, I had to sit through one of those PowerPoints again today, and I was with the knowledge I know now, looking back at the years after, like before this, it's the same cookie cutter process. It's the same PowerPoint, maybe spruced up a little bit different, but it's the same. And I had a thought process today, like, hey, I'm going to go talk to the chaplain and say, hey, this is the same stuff that happens every year with this.
Yeah.
And I brought up the bracelet. I'm like, these 4 dudes, it's a result of how we've been doing this.
Yeah. I mean, the results speak for themselves, unfortunately. And I wish they didn't, right? It shouldn't take 4 dudes to change how we do things, but apparently that's what it takes. You know, and it goes back to like the VA, you know, where's the accountability?
There is none.
Yeah. When are people going to start recognizing that they're part of the issue? You know, that's the hard part. That's the hard question, is where is the accountability of the failures, you know, and stepping up and saying, I'm part of the problem. Now we got to change. Like, we got to do something to change. And it goes from the top all the way to the bottom. It's everyone. It's not just, you know, it's not just E6s, not just E7s. It's not just E1s. It's not just E9s. It's everyone. And the process has to change.
And that's the thing. I think the VA is at a situation where the only way the VA will ever change is in terms of presidential status of that.
Sure.
What, just because of the fact that that's who runs the VA, the government, you know, and it boils down to the fact that the government doesn't care, because, you know, you can sue the VA. I could have easily gone and filed a tort claim against them. But guess what? Only max of $250,000, which it is still a lot of money, but once you pay for the attorney, now the attorney has to get your doctor's stuff, has to get depositions from them, has to then go hire a, you know, third party, per person from Pennsylvania or wherever the case may be. And then once you start filing all the different claims and things like that in court, well, by then your attorney's already going to be out of pocket $100,000. So by the time you get paid, he's only going to make, he's only going to make 30-40% of that. So for him, it's not worth it, because he can easily go pick up a DUI case and have that done in a week time frame and make $10,000, compared to, you know, spending a year to 2 years dealing with the VA and the government and only make $30,000 in a 2-year time period.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't think the VA will ever change, just because of that reason, because they know no matter what they do, they're not going to be held accountable. They don't have accountability. They will never have accountability. Yeah. We see it every day on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's a tough situation. But maybe the Army will. Maybe the military will. You know, I think COVID has really presented it has shown a lot of rearing, you know, fallibilities within the system of the military, you know, and I think we might see some changes. We'll see. I mean, me and Kyle will definitely see for sure. Who knows? But Tyler, I think, I think we've talked plenty. I think we'll probably talk again at some point. We'll probably have you back on the podcast
Absolutely.
or, get in touch at some point. Why don't you tell my guests how you can be reached and what you're working on? Throw whatever you want at them so they know how to get in touch with you and support you.
Yeah. I mean, TikTok, Tyler McClelland 1. Literally, if you type in Tyler MCC, it's the first one that pops up. My inbox is always open. My Instagram's linked to that, that you can go follow me on the Instagram as well through TikTok. And, like I said, my inbox is always open. I mean, I am trying to do this full time, and
Yep.
so, I mean, there is merchandise that is specifically for breaking the stigma. It's breaking the chains. That's my whole entire design, is talking about mental health and breaking that, and anybody who does that, more than appreciative. And I send out free stickers and letters to those people all the time that do support, that let me know, just because I want to be able to connect with people on a personal level. It is, I do have to make money in order to give back to people,
right,
and to be able to live this life, but, most importantly to me, it's giving back to others and really showing a conversation starter, per se. So that's where y'all can find me.
Absolutely. More to come from Tyler. I know you're not going to stop. So.
Oh, I'm definitely not. And it's, I'll give you one little tidbit. I was actually in Dallas wearing my merchandise, and this wonderful businessman sitting next to me looks at me and he goes, what's your hoodie mean? And I tell him, and he said, well, I'm going to, give you a suggestion, because I own a business. You might want to change it, just because if it doesn't draw my attention within about 5 seconds, I'm not going to care what's on it. I said, well, sir, we just spent the last 15 minutes in a Hooters talking about mental health. I said, so clearly what my design did actually made you want to talk about mental health and mental health awareness. So I appreciate your feedback, though. I'll take it into consideration.
Boom.
So that's what we're trying to do here. I know y'all both have that same ideal of just making it normalized. And I look forward to being back with y'all and, really growing and seeing what we can do and change, globally, not just in our cities and states and towns.
I think you should start a podcast for sure.
Man, you've got that radio voice. I'm over here like
you've got a voice too, man. Like, you don't give yourself enough credit. I had no idea I had a good voice until TikTok told me, See,
I get told all the time, but I've had people say that they listen to me at night just so they'll fall asleep because it's soothing. And I'm like, well, I don't want people on a podcast sleeping on me.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
ASMR, is that what it's called? I'm just
something like that.
Yeah,
Man,
get my emergency bag of Cheez-Its and just...
There you go. There you go. Hey, before we go, I think we should do this with, you're the first guest, to be perfectly honest. You're my first actual guest other than Kyle. Like, Kyle's my co-host.
Yeah.
So before you go, why don't you tell us the best advice you can either give people or have ever gotten in your life? I'm putting you on the spot here because I didn't ask you this question before. Take a minute if you need it. And while you're thinking.
So, well, I've got something for you. I forget the author, but I'm going to give you advice, and I'm going to give you a quote that I absolutely love and that I absolutely just adore. Not really adore, but just, it's awesome. But the best advice, I heard somebody tell me this the other day, and they said, forget the man's name. He was a wealthy businessman. Sure. And he basically said every year he gave himself 3 take or emit 1 tickets, like you get it like at a carnival.
Mm-hmm.
And he said every year he would use one of those tickets, and he would do something, whether it be a business venture or a trip or doing something out of his comfort zone. And at the end of the year, if he failed, he failed. But that way, when he went to his grave and he was on his deathbed, he could not leave the what ifs behind. And I feel like that's something everyone should realize, that if you constantly live in the what ifs, you are going to lay there one day on your deathbed and wish you would have done something differently. And you will have that for the rest. You won't have it for the rest of your life because you'll be gone. But you are going to look back on that moment, and instead of thinking, "Man, I did everything I wanted," you're going to lay there and go, "Man, I should have done more."
It's awesome. It's profound.
But I wish I know the art. I will find it and send it to you. And then the quote, I'm sure you know Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
There's always some madness in love, but there's also always some reason in madness. And that is some of the best advice that people just kind of really soak that in and, you know, listen to it. That's, in my opinion, just so humbling, because you're like, especially people with anxiety, you know, everything's madness for me. I mean, I went to the grocery store because we're having a blizzard come through freaking Oklahoma, and bought $140 of nothing but junk. Like, I don't even know what I'm gonna make, you know. But I had bad anxiety, you know, and I was like, oh my god, like it's just madness, you know. But there's reasons in the madness, and I think that's something. I think Nietzsche said it best, and just beautifully said.
It's awesome, Tyler. I seriously appreciate you coming on the podcast today. This will probably
I appreciate you having me on here. It's been a blast. I was anxious to tell about it, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, you did great. You made me and Kyle laugh multiple times. I love that. Right? We're on a super serious mental health podcast, and we get to laugh. That's awesome. That's a good day for me.
That's my philosophy with mental health. I always try to I'd rather laugh about it and realize that if you laugh about it and y'all laugh about it, no one can laugh at me because we're all laughing together.
Works.
Exactly.
It works. Yep. Yeah, man. Thank you. I mean, I can't thank you enough. Like, I can't wait to see where you go. I can't wait to see, like, we've got to get together at some point, you know, like we'll make it happen. Just keep in touch.
I'm not going to go camping out in the negative.
That's okay.
So we'll wait till summer. That's
fine. Yeah. You can come on up when it's nice. Yeah. Kyle, if you don't know, I'm going camping tomorrow.
Nice.
It's going to be -11.
I'm hopping on a plane and going to Cali. So I'm going to get some sun.
There you go, man. I'm going camping. Well, let me close this episode and we'll call it a day. Well, if you want to join my inspirational text platform and get a chance to feature your question on the podcast, text your question to 1-608-336-4480. It's in the description if you need. And that can go for anything. If you want to, whatever topic you want to ask, just shoot me a question. We'll take a look at it. But finally, thanks for joining us on this week's episode. It's been an absolute pleasure. And join us next week. I don't even know what we're talking about. We already recorded it, but it's so long. I've got to go through some edits. So you'll enjoy it. I hope, right? Just change your life.